What's up, y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast, live on Millions once again. And before we get everything else, we do want to remind you guys about the promo we've got going on through BetUS. If you use our link, you get a 125% bonus and 30 risk-free bets. Make some money with us this week. And we wanted to congratulate Wes Medeiros on winning the giveaway. We only had 2 entries this month, so we're really going to need you guys to step it up with the next giveaway, which I'm not sure exactly what it will be yet, or when we will be kicking that off, but we will be getting that going pretty soon. And as always, as we do on our Sunday night episodes, we're talking about the best games of Week 6, including an absolute statement between the hedges. But before we get to that, how was your weekend and what are you drinking?
Weekend was great. I mean, football weekend, awesome. I mean, a ton of great games to watch. I broke my toe, so that wasn't fun.
Like,
Stubbed it really
actually
hard.
broke or
Yeah, like
just,
legit. Like it's no, like
oh,
legit. Like it's black. I
oh.
I stubbed it really hard. So those of you guys that are wishing that on me, you win. But gambling wise, we'll get into like the actual picks for the show, but like doing like player props and stuff, I cleaned up this week and I'm like up like $220 right now. So
There you
let's
go.
go. Not drinking anything besides Diet Pepsi right now because they didn't have Diet Coke. But what about you?
Weekend was good. No, I hung out with Candler and Perry at the tailgate yesterday. Had a good time there.
Hmm.
Had a good time at the game. We'll get into a couple game specific things here in a minute. Um, man, I'm just tired. I,
It's
for
a
for whatever reason, I had the hardest time sleeping this weekend in the bed at my in-laws' house. So I'm exhausted. We got home like 30 minutes ago.
Oh, good Lord. I thought you said you got home last night. I'm like, how the hell did you do that? The game wasn't over till 11:30.
Nope, nope. We got home like 30 minutes ago.
Good Lord. Whew. Oh man. See, you know what? It's catching up to you. You're getting old.
I definitely feel old. And for I don't know what it is. Last 2 games I've gone to, the entire drive home, I have been fighting a stomach bug and having to stop like every 30 minutes at a gas. I don't know what it is. I don't. The first time I was like, "Oh, the play of the team's making me sick." I Not yesterday.
Nope.
Damn sure not yesterday. So I don't know what it is.
Hmm. We'll have to brainstorm.
Yeah, maybe it's hot take. It's possibly not eating pretty much all day and drinking a lot.
That could do it. I wanna take some like we talk about like superstitions and things like that. I did not drink at all watching this game, the Georgia and Kentucky game, and we played really well. So I think going forward, I'm just gonna have to be stone cold sober for it, for us to not question everything.
Um, and I guess I'm just gonna have to drink
Be
like
black.
3/4 of a fifth of Maker's Mark.
Yeah, or even more than that to compensate for the amount I'm not drinking.
Well, that's what I did yesterday, and I had a few beers from Candler.
Hell
So,
yeah.
so yeah, and all I had until about midnight was a little like a 4-inch section of a pub sub.
Oh no. Damn. Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, no, poor choices were made. But poor choices get made frequently, and it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, we'll power through.
Yeah, like we do, especially with this phenomenal win Georgia had over, at the time, number 20 Kentucky. They were 14.5 point favorites, over under 48. I said Kentucky was going to cover this game, and up until 7:15 last night, I had a very good reason to think they would. Um,
Yeah,
because Georgia barely beat Auburn and Kentucky curb stomped Florida.
yeah.
But
All legit reasons.
but Carson Beck started the game 12 for 12, and it was only ended from a drop, not even a miss, a drop by Arian Smith, or he would have gone 13 for 13.
Hmm.
Um, the atmosphere was great. It was definitely up there with the Tennessee of last year, with the Notre Dame of 2019. Um,
Oh, okay.
it was, I think, 125 ish decibels um, was the loudest it got. So
Okay.
so it got pretty loud. I honestly,
Mm-hmm.
um, there was probably like a 13-year-old girl that was sitting directly to my right
Hmm.
with her parents, and I accidentally scared her to death the first time I started yelling when Georgia was on defense.
Hmm.
So from that point forward, I would cup my hands over my mouth for a solid 5 seconds before I started yelling, so she could like be prepared.
Yeah.
And
Here it comes.
she forgot it until every series started. So yeah, I try to be a good guy, but I'm not gonna stop being loud.
That's fair. That's what we want you to do. 13-year-old girls, you gotta step your game up.
Yeah. I did kind of feel bad for her because of how bad I scared her, if I'm being entirely honest. Um, but at the same time, she had a blanket, and I was in just a jersey and some pants.
Hmm.
Um, and I sent it to the group chat before the game yesterday. I was like, "Hey, if kicks get missed or kickoffs are weird, it's because it's insanely windy." And when I rewatched the broadcast today, I didn't notice them say how bad the wind was until close to halftime.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, yeah, really didn't notice it until Kirby was doing, I think it was as they're going in for halftime, I think, like when he was doing like his interview, like hair blowing all over the place and everything.
But I mean, every time the ball was kicked off towards the scoreboard, it was short
Mm.
because that's the direction the wind was coming from. It's also the direction that my seats face. Um, by the time we got back to Kelsey's parents last night, she was like, "Either you got sunburned or you have windburn on your cheeks." Like, it was so damn windy. I mean, that's legitimately why all those kickoffs were short. Is kicking into that wind because it was gusting probably 20, 30.
Hmm.
Sometimes there would be no wind, and then
Yeah.
sometimes it would be like 2 minutes straight of 20-mile-an-hour winds.
Is that just what it's like for like every time Kentucky comes to Athens? I feel like every single time they play here, it
And
is
it doesn't
always like
matter.
some kind of extreme weather.
It doesn't matter how early in the year. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
how late in the year. Because 2021, I want to say it was like late October, early November timeframe, and it was like 90
Hmm.
degrees.
Yeah.
And then this time it was early October, and by the time the game was over, it was close to 50.
Let's say like 2020, I'm sorry, 2019, I think it was like a monsoon.
It was. I had
Yeah.
tickets to that game and sat at a bar because I said I will be cold, I will be wet, I will not be both.
Hmm. Fair.
No, it was. Wind was pretty wild yesterday. I was freezing at one point towards the end of the game when there was a TV timeout that lasted longer than the game clock had left. I was about to run down to the field level, jump the hedges, and just beat the TV timeout dude. I was going to be willing to go to jail.
You're gonna kill the messenger.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
You gotta send
Kill
it.
the
You gotta send a
messenger.
message.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
send a message. No, it
Yeah.
was, bro. I stood up and I was like, ESPN, quit with the damn timeout. Some of us are freezing. Everybody in the section that was still there just turned
Mhm.
around and started laughing. It's like,
Yeah.
it's too damn cold for this. We get two cold games a year and we expect it to be Georgia Tech and Senior Day.
Right. Not October 7th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man. And what's funny is the this weekend last year was the Auburn game
Hmm.
where I thought parts of my jersey had melted to my skin with how hot it was.
Yeah.
And this year, I wish that I had a jersey melting to my skin.
That way you can layer though. I would rather it be a little bit more chilly and be able to layer than it just be, there's nothing you can do and you're just on the surface of the sun just melting to the bleachers.
Mm-mm. Nope. I'm a cold weather bitch. I don't like the cold. Once it gets below 50, I don't really want to be outside.
That's
I
fair.
mm-mm. And I had a sweatshirt that I was going to take. Left it sitting on the couch when we went to the game.
Mm,
So I didn't have a sweatshirt.
damn.
Yeah. Uh huh. Uh huh.
And even with all those booze, you were still cold.
Yeah. That's the
Damn.
surprising thing. And I told
Right.
Kelsey at halftime, I was like, I wore my boots. I should have put some flask in my boots to attempt to stay warm.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
Anyways, back to the actual game. The defense was phenomenal yesterday. Only gave up one touchdown that wasn't a result of a turnover. And the offense was absolutely electric, doing whatever they wanted to against that top 20 defense that we talked about last week with Cash.
Mm.
So I did a little bit of a deep dive. This
Okay.
was the best off regular season offensive game against an SEC opponent during the regular season over the last 3 years for a total yardage count of 608.
So is that just like Georgia, like this is their best game against SEC opponent, or
Yes.
just? Oh, okay, all right.
So when they beat Vandy 62 to nothing,
Mhm.
500 yards.
Wow, and they did 108 more than that. Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this was an absolutely insane game. Carson, I think, made one bad decision, and it was when he forced that pass that ended up being a turnover.
Hmm.
Um, Game plan was exactly what you wanted it to be. Had them on their heels pretty much all night long. The
Hmm.
receivers were going out making plays. The running backs were doing more than what they should have been able to do. I mean, Dejan Edwards, somebody gave that guy some Energizer batteries for the game because
Hmm.
he would get hit and just spin around and get another five or six
Yeah.
and sidestep another dude and get another few. Like that.
Yeah, I mean, he ended up just running hard. I mean, that's the thing that you want the most. Like they started off super aggressive, passing the ball, and then ended up opening up the run later in the game. Like Edwards, he had 9 carries for 54 yards, 6 yards a pop. Uh, longest run was only 13 yards, but I mean, he was super effective when given the opportunity. Then Kendall Milton, for the first time he's gotten carries in a little while, 8 carries,
Kendall is
47 yards.
different.
Yeah, he ran hard too. Like that was, I think, the hardest he's ran in a while. So I was great to see, and bodes well for us going forward. Did you see how many yards Ray Davis ended up having?
I want to say it was like 30, 30
It was
something.
it was a little bit more than that. He had 15 carries for 59 yards. Longest is
Okay.
only an 11 yard carry. So like I mean, he was pretty much neutralized. He did have a catch though. That was pretty nice. He had 36 yards receiving and a touchdown there that way. But um, just shout out everybody. I mean, there's not really much to pick apart in this game. This is what we've wanted to see. Started out fast, got rid of any kind of doubt. All that. Carson Beck's that dude. I mean, I'm
Oh,
happy, man. It's the happiest I've been, happiest been all season. Nope, I can't really find anything to complain about.
the offensive line. This
Mm-hmm.
was by far the best game a Georgia offensive line has had that wasn't last year's national championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Probably since before Missouri of last year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like,
Absolutely.
I, I mean, y'all know you've heard me every week complain about how poorly the offensive line has played at times,
Mm-hmm.
especially the left guard position. But Dylan Fairchild was a monster out there
Can't
last
call him
week.
fair. Don't call him fair child. Call him fair man. He ain't no child.
Um, if there's one thing that I do have a slight complaint about, and it's mostly a joke, What do we need to do to get Marcus Rosemary-Jacksaint to 100 yards receiving in a game?
He's flirting with it. He's been flirting with it. He just
Two
can't.
weeks ago,
Can't. Yeah.
94 yards.
Hmm.
Yesterday, 99 yards. Like, I think Brock would be okay with 112.
Yeah.
Just give what give just give Marcus a little bit more.
Hmm.
And I mean, to me, yesterday, Marcus was playing the position as well as we had always hoped that George Pickens or AD could have played
Yes.
it.
I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to say it out loud necessarily.
And I know
But
both
he,
of those guys were injured a lot, but
yeah. Well,
Marcus has
Marcus was
been that
too.
guy
Yeah.
consistently all year. Like,
Hmm.
oh, you need something? My body shouldn't move like this, but it's going to make this catch.
Hmm.
And
He.
there's one deep play close to the goal line where I thought it should have been a pass interference. That was actually a play going the direction of our seats,
Hmm.
but it was where Carson threw the ball probably 3 or 4 yards to Marcus's left. And when he went to turn to get it, Maxwell Hairston was in the way.
Hmm.
But when he turned, he kind of tried to push Maxwell off. So it was a pass interference both ways. But I think it was a little bit more defensive pass. I'm not mad at the no call,
Yeah.
but I think it could have been called either way.
Hmm. He. Marcus has made himself some money these last few weeks. He's a senior. I don't know if he has a COVID year of eligibility left, but
He does. I
dude,
think he does. If he's a senior, he does.
yeah. So he's made himself some money being like the uh outside threat more or less for this team. So with Lad being hurt and some other things going on, like he's played really really well.
Yeah, no, I think the entire receiver room stepped up pretty big
Yeah.
yesterday.
Hmm.
Um, we try to be honest as much as we can and objective as much as we can. I'm disappointed with Arian's play this year. Um,
Yeah.
he dropped two passes yesterday, and the one completion he did have was like a screen pass that he did phenomenal on the run after catch, but it got called back for holding.
Yeah.
Um, I still want to see a little bit more from him. Every time there's been a good pass thrown his way that he could do something with, he seems to drop it, and I don't really know what the cause of that is.
Hmm. Yeah, it's weird. So it's not like it's necessarily been like Carson's fault for a lot of that stuff. I mean, he's gotten his hand on a lot of those. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing. I mean, we'll need him to, be there, um, when it comes time, for postseason play. But I'd like to see it before that. But one little thing to nitpick, but it's all good. But yeah,
Yeah.
Robert Thomas though, and
Oh,
I know we're going to talk about him later, but kicked down just uh, amazing. I mean, I don't want to say amazing, but like he did very very well in this game.
oh yeah, for sure. You want to get into what Caleb sent us?
Um, one real quick, one other thing I
Yeah.
wanted to just kind of point out. So with like Devin Leary, we had talked about with Cash about him, Devin not really being, all there. Maybe it's still the Peck thing, although, Cash didn't necessarily buy that as a reason why Devin Leary's been playing like poo poo. But he was 10 of 26, 128 yards, just a hair under 5 yards per attempt. He did have two touchdowns, but I mean, he only completed 10 passes. It was a tough day for him.
One of
But
those touchdowns was a dime, and the other was
yeah,
Ray Davis being Ray Davis.
yeah. I mean, Ray Davis kind of reminding me of a poor man's like Nick Chubb on that touchdown catch that he did because he did all the work there for sure. Um, Another reason why I wanted him on this team, but you know, didn't fall that way. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into Caleb's stuff.
All right, you got it.
All right, cool. All right, so here's some stats courtesy of Caleb Tillman, aka Brock Bowers, aka the Jamie of the Pod. Georgia's now leading the SEC in passing yards per game, third in the SEC in scoring offense, and second in total yards per game. And I'd have to see how far they are from first, as I can't imagine it being very much, especially at this point. This is also the most dominant win over Kentucky in a decade, and it's the fourth largest win over Kentucky in series history. And just one other thing, just kind of overall, Georgia's beating ranked teams the last 2 years by an average of 30 points per game. and that includes the the Ohio State game, of course. So if that was a little bit more of a blowout, good lord.
Oh, for sure. So with the total yards per or total yards of offense, LSU is actually third in the country at 548.3, and Georgia is eighth at 502.3. So
Oh,
46 yards a game different than
oh
the
wow,
top team in the SEC.
wow. Okay, that's a little bit more than I would think. Holy shit.
But a couple of teams that I think a lot of people would not have expected Georgia to be ahead of, considering how I would say most fans have been upset with their type of offense over the last few weeks.
Mhm.
They are ahead of North Carolina. They
Ooh.
are ahead of Ole Miss. They're ahead of Texas. They're ahead of Louisville, who beat a ranked top 10 Notre Dame the other day.
Mhm.
Tennessee, Mizzou, App State. I mean, we're down to and Kansas State, who's at 25th. So a lot of teams that were expected to have good offenses this year. Georgia is eighth, and the teams ahead of them right now are Washington, Oregon, LSU, Southern Cal, UCF, Oklahoma, and Miami. Um, and
Miami.
as we have seen over, especially this past weekend, most of these teams don't play defense. So the fact that Georgia does and has currently a top eight total offense is ridiculous.
Yeah. Ah, shoot. God, I was gonna say one other thing before we got into other stuff, and I'm blanking. Yeah, it'll come back to me later.
All right, all right. You want to do players of the game?
Yeah, let's knock it out. All right. So did we want to do just the one here for the offensive player?
Um, I don't remember what we talked about earlier. That
Okay,
was
well,
3 hours in the car ago.
oh no. Okay, so we'll stick with this. So
All right.
the I kind of took it upon myself to name this award the Brock Bowers Offensive Player of the Game award. So the Brock Bowers Offensive Player of the Game award goes to Brock Bowers.
Yeah,
Seven catches, 132 yards and a touchdown, including a 49-yard grab. On one of the wasn't necessarily a back shoulder fade, but one of the you know t- attempts that he had in the end zone, he did come up a little bit gingerly, but then he came back in there and had I think he had like another 50 yards after that.
I thought it
So
was funny how the broadcast went and got the rules analyst to talk about the football pants length thing.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I remember when I played football that it was a rule your pants had to go over your knees and you had to have knee pads in. So the
hmm
way he explained it was actually pretty interesting.
yeah, yeah.
If you didn't hear before a game, the refs go around and check to make sure that you can roll your pants down over your knee, but you don't have to keep it that way. So it's just
Hmm.
kind of odd.
Yeah, that is pretty odd.
But no, I agree. I mean, Greg McElroy said that Brock Bowers should be a Heisman finalist, and if a Bama homer is saying that, it's got to be set in stone.
Exactly. It is law.
It is law. For defensive player of the game, we've got Jamon Dumas Johnson, aka Pop. He had 1.5 sacks, and both of those he was absolutely just shot through a cannon.
Yeah.
Uh, One he wasn't touched, and the other he just tossed a 320-pound right guard out of the way to get to
hmm
Devin Leary. Four total tackles, three solo, and just his coverage all day. I mean, there's one play specifically I remember Ray Davis was starting to break a run on the left side, and Pop just out of nowhere from the side stopped it. And if he had missed that tackle, 15, 20-yard gain pretty easily.
Yeah,
Um,
that was always the knock on Pop was his coverage skills are kind of recognizing that stuff. But at least in this game, that has proven not to be the case. That was definitely a good showing by Pop here.
well, I mean, if the team was sleepwalking through the first 5 games of the season, they're all well rested. Makes sense.
There we go. That I love that spin zone. We're gonna keep rolling with that. I will say the team overall, like we talked about, like there being kind of a lack of a pass rush. With Devin Leary only completing 10 passes, the team as a whole had 4 tackles for loss and 3 sacks altogether, with Pop having half of those. But again, much better showing in that department as well.
I would love to know where to find the quarterback hurry stat.
That would be good because I know Kirby talked about the sacks not being the only being the only thing to judge whether or not you have an effective pass rush, which he's right. I mean, they can definitely be overblown for sure, but I mean, as long as you're creating havoc and putting pressure on that quarterback and impacting him when he's dropping back, like that's really the important thing, or the most important thing.
I agree 100%. Um,
Sacks are
so
sexy. So.
no, go ahead.
And no, I said sacks are sexy. Uh,
I'm trying to see about the quarterback hurry thing. If you want to start going on the next.
yeah. All right, so Boom's newcomer of the game, and before I even get into that, I did want to make a note, and I could be totally wrong here. Maybe I just hadn't been paying attention. But in the fourth quarter, ESPN made it a did a conscious effort to show Boom, aka UGA 11, and his handler kind of walking up the Georgia player sideline, and everybody's petting him, giving him boops, all that, appreciating him. And like I said, I don't remember that really being a thing. I mean, usually you have UGA whatever number it is, like kind of hanging out near the doghouse and just, kind of there. I don't remember ever him seeing him on over on that side. So that was interesting. I don't know if they just did that because it was a blowout or what. I have no idea.
So I will say I don't remember seeing that. Um, so I'll just go on a limb and say that it's not a normal thing that they do.
Hmm.
But I don't know. Um,
Yeah, I mean they probably took about a good 20 or 30 seconds just kind of zooming in on Boom and just showing him get petted and all that stuff. Someone did say that the Kentucky cheerleaders did a spot with him. I think during the game they put them up on the jumbotron with Boom and everybody booed. Is that something that you remember?
no, I
Okay.
don't.
I just read it. I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to it, but I thought that was interesting. But all right, anyway, so Boom's newcomer. So um kind of a cop out so we can talk about Brock more for offensive player of the game, but Boom's newcomer is going to go to Carson Beck. Obviously, this is his fourth year in the program, but again, he went 28 of 35 for 389 yards and 4 touchdowns and a pick. The pick was only his only bad decision on the day. And then kind of that was 1A. 1B is Ra Thomas. In the first quarter, he had an amazing grab. Was able to sneak his left foot in there by the pylon for his first touchdown catch in his Georgia career, and he just made some tough clutch catches to get some of the big plays and first downs. So, like we said, this is the of the two, him and Dominic Lovett, like this between the two of them, this has been the best of like the new wide receivers, the transfer portal guys, their game so far this year.
Yeah, no, I Ra was phenomenal in that game, and I know he didn't light up the stat sheet,
Hmm.
but what he did in those spots of first off that touchdown that he had.
Hmm.
If I'm being entirely honest, that was directly down the sideline that's closest to our seats. Did not look like a touchdown. The replay they showed in the stadium did not look like a touchdown. The
Hmm.
entire stadium thought that was not a touchdown. And the ref said it was, and nobody wanted to question it.
Right. I mean,
So,
yeah, it didn't look like it at first, and then when they started to review, like, oh, like shit, like that was definitely it. So amazing. It, I do want to like cut like some referees some slack because I would not want to do that job for any
no,
amount of money. That sucks. I don't know why you'd want to
no.
do it. Um,
And,
yeah.
for us to complain about the refs a lot, I do want to say that the game yesterday, there was one questionable call, I think.
Mhm.
And it was the unnecessary roughing the quarterback on
Mhm.
Devin Leary, where Warren Brinson ran into him and didn't even tackle him, like right as he was letting go of the pass, and
Hmm.
they threw a flag on that. I think that was really the only questionable call. So
Hmm.
shout out to uh, shout out to the refs. I thought they did a good job, and
Hmm. One they did do. I don't know so much about the second half because I wasn't paying attention as hard at that point, but they called a lot of penalties in that first half. I think there was at least 12. I think between the two. It just seemed like it, like especially in the first quarter, it was like, call like flag after flag after flag. But I mean, it got better later on, but
it
started off kind
was,
of
but
rough.
a lot of those were just egregious penalties by
Yeah,
Kentucky. I
yeah.
mean, so that I don't think was off kilter or anything.
Hmm.
And like I said, I do think there was a call towards the goal line on that pass to Marcus that could have gone either way, but I think if it could go either way, just don't call it. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a bad no call.
Hmm.
Um, I was only really upset with one call. I thought the rest of them were right on par with what you would expect. So shout out to that crew.
Yeah. One other thing before we kind of move on to that last part, just keep it on Carson Beck. I thought I put this in here, but I guess I didn't. So he's actually number 4 in the country in passing yards, like or in total passing yards. He has 1,886. He's 13 behind. Or, I'm sorry, 130 behind Jaden Daniels, and Shadur Sanders is up there at 2020 altogether. But Carson Beck being top 5 ahead of Dylan Gabriel, ahead of Brady Cook, and JT Daniels is actually number 7 in the country. So
Huh.
yeah, I know, right? Hmm.
Huh.
Interesting. Ahead of
Um,
Caleb Williams. Hmm.
and Carson is 17th in the country in yards per attempt.
Good.
I just accidentally pulled that up, if I'm being entirely honest with you.
Jacob Zeno, the boy from not the boy, but the guy, the quarterback from UAB, is ninth in the country at almost 1,800 yards. So yeah, some stiff competition.
Yeah, and we talked about it as far as that goes. The guy from UAB, they run a air raid offense, so he's obviously going to be up there in yards.
Mhm.
Um, and they thrashed USF.
Oh my God.
Something Bama couldn't do. So that's
No,
very impressive.
I was gonna say, like, looking at transitive like opponents there. I mean, Georgia's went over UAB infinitely better than Alabama's went over USF. So
I
there you
mean, if we're going by the rock solid concrete set in stone transitive property of college football,
go. Mhm.
UAB is better than Alabama because they beat USF more, and because Georgia beat UAB, Georgia would beat Alabama by 40 points.
50. Yeah, at least, yeah.
So
We're gonna talk about it in a little bit about like at the SEC West altogether, but yeah, I'm not scared of them.
all right,
Not right
so
now.
the hungriest dog award of the week. And I think we're actually going to give it to two guys. Actually, let's call it three, but primarily two because they had a lot more playing time. And that's the left side of the offensive line. Dylan Fairchild and Ernest Green were able to open up running lanes on that left side all day. A bunch of those big runs were on that left side with Dylan Fairchild, who this was, I want to say, his first ever start.
I think so.
Um, and Ernest Green playing one of the toughest positions in college football is left tackle is in his sixth start. Um, but they pass blocked well. They open up some running lanes, and considering that this was the ninth ranked running defense in the country, that's extremely impressive to me. And I think the coaches have finally solidified a left guard, left tackle combo, hopefully for the rest of the season.
Hmm.
Um, I hope that even once Amarius Mims comes back, that it's these two because that is by far first the toughest defensive line that they have played all season and probably will play all season,
Hmm.
and they performed extremely well. And then I guess part B of that is Jared Wilson, the guy that stepped in at center for Cedric Van Pran when he was out for what 2 drives, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was 2.
Um, but for him to come in, no high snaps, no low snaps, be able to snap the ball, get off well, and block. Phenomenal job by him. And I mean, the entire offensive line, but especially that left side that's been a question mark all year. And then, when you have an All American center go down and you're able to replace him and not really notice a drop off, I'm extremely happy about that. And when Cedric leaves, I think the team's going to be in good hands after that. So
Yeah.
loved
Mhm.
loved that performance by the offensive line.
For sure.
So this is where I'm going to put calling the dogs when I get the audio set up. I will say that for whatever reason, I couldn't get it to work in the software that we're using to stream. Um, I'm having audio issues playing all of our tracks right now through the software, so I might have to redo some of that. But this point right here is where we're putting calling the dogs. And I just sent Mike the timestamp so I don't forget and have to look later. So
All right. There we go.
I will say I listened to it, and it was Josh Deal that called in. Um,
Son of a bitch. Are you serious?
yes.
No. Okay. Good.
Um,
Good.
I be entirely honest. I don't really know what it is or what it's supposed to be. Um, but I laughed my ass off for the few seconds I was listening to it, so I'm here for it. This is
Okay.
what we're looking for, guys.
Hell yeah.
Um, let's talk about the Red River Showdown, and it absolutely was this week.
Hmm.
12th ranked Oklahoma versus number three at the time Texas, who were 6.5 point favorites over under 60.5. Hit the over because Oklahoma won a thriller 34-30. Dylan Gabriel had 500 total yards almost, 113 yards rushing, 285 passing with two total touchdowns. He also had that go ahead touchdown with 15 seconds left in the game.
Hmm.
Um, and Oklahoma actually has a defense now.
Yeah.
Not a great one, but
Hmm.
they show up when it counts.
They made a stop on fourth and goal that was huge. I mean, like I think it was a little screen pass, and they ended up just stopping him like a good yard short, like two of the DBs on. I can't remember who it was that caught it, but it was a hell of a play. I mean, it was a hard hit. So that was cool to see.
Yeah. I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time watching this game because we were, well, one, driving, and then two, at the tailgate. And
Mm.
while we were in the car, I had the LSU Mizzou game playing over the radio.
Another great one.
Yes.
One thing I will say, I think the group chat mentioned, I can't remember who it was. So sorry, but Sark came out I think yesterday and said, if we didn't lose, we just ran out of time. If you would have, if the game was 59 minutes and 30 seconds, they would have won. But it's not. It's a 60-minute game and they choked. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's
it's tough.
that's a tough look. I do think, probably better clock management,
Hmm.
probably Quinn Ewers not throwing two interceptions and having a fumble.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, Quinn Ewers, three turnovers, but finished the day 31 of 37.
Yeah.
I mean, you could really call it 33 of 37 because those two passes were completed,
True.
um, just to the wrong team.
Yeah.
346 passing yards and a touchdown. I It's pretty wild considering how well Alabama played or Texas played against Alabama. They would come in to this
Hmm.
game and just defensively lay an egg. I guess that means Oklahoma's defense or offense is better than Alabama's, and I don't think that's really that big of a leap to take.
Yeah. Do you know? I don't know if you saw the AP. Do you know how far Oklahoma went up in the AP?
They were 12th,
Hmm.
I'd say top seven.
They went up to fifth. Yeah.
Oh,
Oklahoma and Texas dropped down to ninth, which so they fell 6 spots, but they're still ahead of undefeated USC. So
uh,
Longhorns not out of it.
okay. I do have a gripe about that because I did look at the top 10 a little bit, but like I said, I've been driving pretty much all day, so I don't
Hmm.
didn't get too much of a chance to look at it. The fact that Arizona is a three-loss team and USC dropped one spot after going to
Yeah.
triple overtime against a three-loss team,
Hmm.
and Texas loses a close game to an undefeated team and drops 6 points, to me is absurd.
It is silly. It really
Especially
is.
because Texas beat Alabama, who somehow, some way, is still ranked 11th.
Hmm. Like Ole Miss went up 3 spots to 13. Louisville jumped a ton with their win over Notre Dame. They went up
Deservedly
11
so.
spots. Yeah, they went. I mean, they won by 13 over Notre Dame at home. I mean, outside of that, Notre Dame is still in the top 25. Somehow
I
they
think
fell 11
Kentucky is
spots
too,
though.
aren't they?
Kentucky came in at 24th, and then Miami is still in the top 25. And we'll get into Miami a little bit at the very end there because that was wild.
Yeah. No, I. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So you put in here, is Oklahoma back? Because going into the game, they were top 10 in both score or offense and defense,
Hmm.
and they lost this game last year to 49-0. Granted, Dylan Gabriel did not play in this game last season because of a concussion, and General Booty lived up to his name.
Yeah.
Um, it, I said that these two teams were going to play in the conference championship game as a big middle finger to the Big 12 as
Hmm.
the last time that they will be in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Um, I still believe that. I don't think there's really any other team in the Big 12 that's anywhere close to the level of these two.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so
Unless Texas Tech lives up to the hype that I gave them earlier in the year.
that would be cool. I'll say it. That would be cool.
Because
Um,
Texas Tech doesn't. I probably said it a few times. Texas Tech doesn't play Oklahoma. They do play at Texas to finish the year, but it's still a chance.
all right. I know it's still early October, but playoff scenario. These two teams play in the Big 12 title game.
Hmm.
Texas wins, giving them the same record, but Texas has the win over Alabama, who makes it to the playoff.
So you say Texas wins the Big 12 championship after splitting? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas would have to be it because they would have. I mean, they'd have the better out of conference win, and they would have the conference championship as a another data point. Even though again they beat the team that they lost to earlier in the year. So I mean, I think you'd have to go with Texas. I mean, if it was super close, you may have an argument, but I think Texas would still have it in that case because they without 3 turnovers they should have won this game. I
I mean,
don't
they
say
had three
handily,
turnovers
but
and lost by four.
yeah. So they're yeah, is Oklahoma like far and away a better team? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But um, yeah, Texas had every opportunity to win this game, and they just couldn't keep the ball in their hands. Couldn't. So
I think it'll be interesting because I think that by the end of the season, you can have the same argument with the Pac 12, especially considering Washington and Oregon play this week,
yeah.
both coming
Mm.
off of byes. So I think that'll be. I think there'll be a lot of interesting playoff conversations that first week in December. I'm looking forward to it.
But I'm saying if Georgia doesn't, if they go undefeated in the regular season and they lose to Alabama or Ole Miss, do you think Georgia still makes it?
It depends on how the rest of the field plays out.
Yeah.
Because I think an undefeated Pac 12 champion makes it. I think an undefeated ACC champion makes it. And the Big Ten is going to come down to Ohio State, Michigan again, who's probably going to be undefeated at that point
Hmm.
and make it. So I think it would just be four of the five conference champions.
It's tough to argue.
And
Uh,
that would be
uh,
a really tough argument considering that the SEC has had the weakest out of conference schedule for any of the Power Five conferences and
mhm.
really any of the teams that are playing for it.
Yeah.
Um,
But you can argue like the schedule looked a little bit tougher for Georgia like at this point in the year than it did 6 weeks ago because you beat a ranked Kentucky team. Granted, they were 20th. Um,
yeah, I'm
Missouri,
saying out
yeah.
of conference wise
Oh yeah.
because, I mean, granted, the two teams I'm about to bring up, not great, but
Mhm.
you didn't know that they weren't great when they were scheduled.
Mhm.
Washington played Michigan State,
Right.
Power Five out of conference game.
Mhm.
Oregon played Texas Tech, Power Five out of conference game. Texas played Alabama, Power Five out of conference game. Oklahoma has the weakest schedule of the teams we're talking about. Florida State played LSU. UNC played South Carolina and App State, who App State is, we'll just call them a Power Five team because they pretty much
Nice. Yeah.
are.
Mm-hmm.
So I think of all the at this point in the season contenders, Georgia, USC, and Oklahoma have the weakest out of conference schedule.
Yeah.
Granted, two of those teams are supposed to play each other this season
Mm-hmm.
to end that argument.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, if there's a, I understand the reason why it didn't happen. Let's just say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, but you know what? Georgia still does play Georgia Tech at the end of the year. Georgia Tech is uh, well, they're 2-1 in the ACC. You know, again, we're going to get to that later. So
Got a ranked win.
yeah, yeah, top 17 win.
Yeah.
Guts. Even yeah, okay, we'll get into that. I keep like alluding to it, but we'll save that for later. It's just it just blows my mind that that game happened at all. But yeah.
All right, let's go on to number 23, LSU, 5.5 point favorites at Missouri, over under 63.5. Missouri was ranked 21 at the start of this game, and if you kept ranking teams that receive votes in the AP poll, they would currently be ranked 26th,
Hmm.
um, which is 5 spots ahead of Clemson still. Fun fact.
Yeah.
But LSU did win this game 49-39, covering that 5.5. Jaden Daniels threw 259 yards, 3 touchdowns, ran for 139, and I will say, when he got dinged up,
Hmm.
came out of the game, he had 62 rushing yards. I know that for a fact because I bet that he would have over 62 and a half. So I needed one more yard at that point. By the time we got from the parking deck into the Uber to the tailgate, he was at 110 rushing yards.
I mean, when they brought him out of the game, it looked like that he may not have. I mean, Nuss came back in there, busting us, made an appearance. He looked shook. And yeah, without Jaden Daniels like just being a complete dog and just coming back in there, they would have lost that game.
Oh yeah, 100%. Logan Diggs,
Hmm.
134 yards rushing and a touchdown. Neighbors had 6 catches for 146. I love, I like. We talked to Will about this for week one, but no, our LSU's running back strategy going into the year. I'm just going to get 5 or 6,
Hmm.
and whichever one plays the best gets the most snaps. And I think it's kind of funny that it's the guy that followed Brian Kelly from Notre Dame, but
Yeah.
he is a phenomenal running back. You
Yeah.
can't take that away from him.
Mm.
On the Mizzou side, Brady Cook had 411 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, including that pick six that pretty much ended the game. Luther Burden the third caught 11 passes for 149. Cody Schrader had 114 yards and 3 touchdowns. This game was just what we said it would be.
Mm.
A absolute just offensive slugfest. It was going to be who had the ball last, and turns out it was LSU's defense that got the ball last, pretty much.
Yeah. I know we'll talk about our bets later on, but the happiest yell I think I've had in a while, just at least watching college football for a team that wasn't mine, was when LSU picked it off, that pick six, to make sure that I covered. I ended up winning that because it was not looking good for, for a while.
I don't even remember who I took on this game.
You took
Probably,
Missouri, but I
I was
mean,
about to say
if it
probably
wasn't the
Missouri.
last 10 seconds, you'd have been good there.
We just need 59-minute games, damn it.
We should definitely petition for it. Maybe that'll be the thing that the SEC agrees to when Texas finally gets in there.
I mean, they already agreed to horns down directed to the Texas bench or players is a
Hmm.
penalty. But they do the same thing for the chomp because Florida and Texas are both weak.
Yeah, fair. Definitely.
Um, I did record this game. I'm going to go back and watch it. I also recorded the Texas game, so I'm going to go back and watch that too. I will say no free ads, but the best thing about Fubo is one, You get Valley, which is where most of the Braves postseason games are going to be played, except for apparently this series that are all on TBS that Fubo doesn't have. So don't.
Hmm.
I'm frustrated about that. But
Yeah.
10,000 hours of DVR space,
Nice.
and I've recorded 30 college football games. I've recorded 4 or 5 Formula One races, and somehow they have the technology to be like, oh, you're only recording the game, but the game's running over, so we're just going to keep going until we know the game's over. So
That's
like
nice.
there's not any you missed the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter or the
Hmm.
last 5 laps of a race because there was a red flag or something. Like you get all of it all the time. So that's super cool. No free ads unless Fubo wants to pay us though.
Fubo, Fubo, Fubo.
Hey, FBI agent guy, tell Fubo. All right. I think the FBI was involved in this next game because number 11 Alabama 2.5 point favorites at Texas A&M over under 49 under hit, but somehow Alabama continues to just play awful football and beat teams that play better football. I don't
Yeah.
doesn't quite make sense. Jalen Milrow did okay. It was entirely what is it, 2 receivers. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was like Jermaine Burton had 9 catches, Isaiah Bond had 7. So between that, that's what, 16? So 16 of his 21 completions went to those two guys.
and I'm assuming the other were Jace McClellan.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he had one. It was just a bunch of ones. So,
Miller went 21-33 for 321 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. If you go into the NCAA stat website, which I will do a free ad for them because they won't even pay players, I know they're not paying me. If you do passing yards per completion, Jalen Milrow is 7th in the country because he cannot complete a pass shorter than 10 yards. He
right.
just can't
Yeah.
do it.
Hmm.
He just can't do it.
Yeah.
Um, and all of his are throw it up and my receiver's down there somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like the person we talked to prior to the Texas and Alabama game. I mean, he is just like 2023 baseball encapsulated. He's just home runs and strikeouts. That's all he is. It's
Yeah.
been working, outside the Texas game. It's been working for him.
Yeah. Um, so for the A&M side, if Connor Wigman, sorry, were healthy, Texas A&M probably wins this game. Max Johnson was more minimum Johnson for this game,
Nah.
14-25, 239 yards, touchdown, interception. Um, but his quarterback play would make those numbers look great.
Yeah, he got happy feet constantly. Anytime he would even think there's pressure on him, he would start backpedaling and just kind of throw off his back foot. He and being left-handed, it just makes it look even worse.
I don't. It's probably just because we're not used to left-handed quarterbacks, but it always looks worse when they start running around.
He's playing the game backwards. What the hell is this guy's problem?
Um,
Maybe if he tried throwing with his right hand, maybe that'd be better.
it's hard to say. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah, that it. I mean, he was not very composed. Granted, the offensive line didn't really do him a ton of favors. I mean, he was getting his ass kicked a lot. Again, I'm not sure about the quarterback or the quarterback hurries or pressures, like where to find that. But I mean, he was feeling stuff all afternoon. And even with that said, they only lost by 6. Um, Jimbo, um, he did a Jimbo. Later in that game, they had went for a field goal and ended up getting blocked. And then they had called a penalty on it. They would have been a touchdown return, but um, at that point, I don't know why they didn't go for it. I mean, he just kind of mismanaged that whole end of game stuff. I think there were some issues between him and Bobby
Bobby,
Petrino. Yeah, I kind of heard that in passing. I haven't really looked too much into that, but I hope so.
you know
I hope it
that
just
this is what a
combusts.
lot of people were worried about
Yeah.
with Jimbo hiring an offensive coordinator. Is if they get in a tight game, is he going to start trying to make the calls? And that's
Mhm.
probably what happened.
Yeah. And
I
all the talent that they have on this team, and they've been able to get to College Station. The fact that they can't get a quarterback is still mind blowing. Like the Max Johnson or minimum Johnson's the worst or the best that you can get is hard to believe.
and so I want to say Evan Neal had 0 catches. Like I'm pretty sure Evan Neal had 0 catches.
I'll double check that real quick. So I
I'm
got it up.
I'm looking it up, and the only reason I think I know that is because um,
No, I didn't have
Kelsey.
any.
Yeah, if you can't get Evan Neal a catch, you're doing it wrong. Or Evan
Hmm.
Stewart.
Oh
Not
no, Evan Stewart had 3 catches. My bad.
Evan Neal's a offensive lineman. Who? What the heck am
Yeah,
I talking
yeah,
about?
but he. No, you're right. He didn't have any catches either, though.
ESPN said he had 3 for 46. Um,
And Nia Smith
somehow,
showed up though. That was cool.
some way, Kelsey's fantasy team got 0 points off of Evan Stewart's catches. Um,
Yeah, fan tracks is not the most reliable for really anything.
correct.
Sorry. Yeah.
Um, regardless, she still beat you, and she was very happy about that. She
Wait, did
actually,
she?
yeah, she said she wanted to actually quit fantasy now because she beat the guy who was number 1 in the league.
Is she sure about that? I thought
She this morning she checked it and said she had you by 5 points. I don't I don't know.
maybe.
That's
She did. I'll be damned. Okay. I thought I had it in the bag. All right, whatever.
yep.
Going first though. 5-1.
So if I'm being entirely honest, I did not watch any of the Arkansas Ole Miss game. I have it recorded. I do know that Arkansas covered this game.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out me on thinking that KJ would put on his cape, which just based on the rest of their season, he had to have for them to have scored points with how bad their
Mm-hmm.
offensive line is. Just
Yep.
we love you, Sam. We do, but it wasn't a good look.
Mm-mm.
Um,
They're spiraling at this point. I think it said in what was it 2021 they had 9 wins was like the most they've had in a number of years, and it hasn't been right. Last year it got a lot worse. This year it's spiraling, and I hate to see it.
yeah, it Arkansas, please be better. We want to love you more.
Yes,
Um, I will say both of us are upset that Jackson Dart didn't have more rushing yards because we both put money
that
on that. Just
that
want to get
cost
that out
me
there.
$500. He should have had another, I think 20. I think it was 20 yards.
Oh, I needed 9 more.
Oh, I think the over under for me was like 44 or something. I can't remember. He way under what I thought he would do because I'm thinking he's going to go for pass for 300 yards, run for another 100 like he had did in a few other games or close to. So I'm like, yeah, easy money. And then it turned out not to be the case. I mean, I still got money, just not the $500 that I was thinking I was in a bank. But it is what it is.
All right. So did you pay attention to the Texas Tech at Baylor game?
Not at all. No.
Do you have the score pulled up?
I my mouse is dead. I was trying to pull it up, but I can't move it
I'll
now.
I'll pull it up on ESPN.
I know they did. I know Texas Tech did win. I think it was they had. Actually, I can pull it up right here.
There you go.
Uh,
Texas Tech 39, Baylor 14.
yeah, they whooped that ass in. I wouldn't say that necessarily. They did. They won
They won a
pretty
conference
handily.
game.
Yeah, they won a conference game. Baby steps after the way it started. Um,
170
yeah,
yards rushing from one guy. Let's
mhm.
go.
Big. I mean,
And
that's
it
what they're
was
going to have to
at
do.
Baylor.
Hmm. They're gonna have to do it. Brendan Morton, Texas Tech's quarterback, 19 to 26, 180 yards. Did throw 3 touchdowns though, so that wasn't bad. But yeah, Taj Brooks, yeah, 31 carries, 170. It's all good.
Hey, they can still make it to Dallas.
Hmm.
Can
Baby
still make it to
steps.
Dallas.
Baby steps. I think they. Let me just double check. They are tied for third in the Big 12 right now with Texas, Kansas, and Iowa State.
Who's second?
Country Roads.
West Virginia.
Yeah. 2-0, 4-1 overall, just like everyone predicted.
Yeah, 100%. It wasn't just 90% of people predicting them to be one of the worst two or three teams in the Big 12.
No, couldn't be me. No, I didn't think that Neil Brown would have got fired 3 weeks ago in the preseason. I wouldn't have done anything stupid like that.
Okay, we've been talking about this one all night without actually talking about it. And I think you watched this game more than I did. Um,
The
Iowa
funny part is
lost.
I did not. I mean, I was kind of checking the scoreboard of it, but then
So
yeah.
I watched like the second half of the fourth quarter,
Hmm.
and then Miami scored with like 30 seconds left, and
Yeah.
or with a minute left, forced a three and out on Georgia Tech, and I turned it off. I was like, oh, it's over.
Yeah. As
Uh,
as it should have been.
yep. So instead of taking a knee to win the game like every other reasonable coach in America would do,
Mhm.
Mario Cristobal decided to just run the ball with 30 seconds left, and the running back decided he didn't want to hold on to the ball with 30 seconds left, and Georgia Tech with Haynes King, 74 yards in 24 seconds, including a 44-yard touchdown to win the game. What's extremely ironic about this, Haynes King, five-star quarterback, went to Texas A&M.
They could have they not that Haynes King is great, but he's better than Max Johnson. They could have beat Alabama with King there, but
No, no,
anyway.
no. A&M lost to Miami team in this same stadium a few weeks ago to get Miami ranked.
Hmm.
And Georgia Tech with a quarterback that left A&M because he wasn't going to start wins at Miami.
It's a Hollywood script.
Ah,
Good for Haynes King.
love that.
Hmm.
Miami totally should have won this game. Outgained Georgia Tech by over 300 yards prior to that fumble,
Hmm.
and allowed less than 200 total yards to Georgia Tech before that fumble. And Mario Cristobal has a history of choosing to lose games. You put it in here. He did it against Stanford in 2018.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it was essentially the kind of the same scenario for the most part. I'm kind of hazy on some of the details. So I was listening to somebody else talk about this, so I may mixed up a couple things here. But like you said, Mario Cristobal did it as Oregon head coach at home against Stanford in 2018. The only difference is Stanford actually hit a field goal late. The same difference, like they're instead of kneeling it out or kneeing it to close out the game, they decide to run it. They fumble it. Stanford's able to get a field goal to send it to overtime, and then they ultimately ended up winning in overtime in Eugene that year. So to do it once is crazy. To do it twice, inexcusable. I don't. Apparently, that Miami had a. I mean, not that they don't ever have big recruits there, but they had a ton of big recruits there, is what I've been told. And
and
they just maybe wanted to show out a little bit, stat pad a little bit, and they did the opposite of that.
yeah, yeah, and you know what you put in here next is hilarious, especially considering what I just talked about with quarterback situation
Hmm.
with Haynes King. But Miami
Yeah.
had BOGO ticket deals to get fans to go to the Texas A&M game. The Georgia Tech game was the get one free, and while they bought a win, they gave away a loss in more ways than one
Hmm.
to a quarterback that Texas A&M also gave away.
Yeah.
Um, so Lion King, full circle, circle of
Mhm.
life, death of a program, all that fun stuff. That's just
It's the perfect way to symbolize just Miami, just encapsulates everything about them in the last
20
20
years.
years since the
Yeah.
phantom PI call against Ohio State in the national championship in like 2003 or whatever, or 2002, whatever year it was. But
So
yeah. Whew.
did What did Mario Cristobal say afterwards? Did he admit that it was a mess up, or
I don't know if he. All he said was that they should have kneeled it. That's all that I saw. That's
okay?
all he said. And then Brent Key, so Georgia Tech's head coach, like everybody else, every other a reasonable person out there besides Mario Cristobal, he thought that they're going to kneel it and just end it out. But it was odd that they would do it out of like shotgun formation. I mean they're probably more comfortable in that anyway, but it's just it.
I've seen it when the quarterback needs like if you're at like 47 seconds and they need one more knee, I've seen
Yeah,
them
you
do
need
it out
to
of
just waste some
shotgun.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but great heads up play by the Georgia Tech defense to realize
Hmm.
they weren't taking a knee and to punch that ball out.
Hmm.
I would say that the guy that forced that fumble is probably never going to buy a drink in Atlanta again, but Tech would have to have fans that care, that live in Atlanta for that to
Yeah.
happen.
I can't tell you who did it, who recovered the fumble, who forced it, but
Shout out that
yeah,
guy.
neither can Tech fans. So there we go.
Shout out that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Um, I mean, it's a sausage fest at Tech's campus anyway, so I don't know. I don't know. You get a win.
Um, so I put some stuff in here about the Arizona USC game because I did watch this game until about halftime. I know a lot of people probably don't care, especially considering that USC doesn't play defense. But a few weeks ago, we talked about how scrappy Arizona was.
Hmm.
I mean, they took Mississippi State to overtime. They didn't let Washington cover, and then they took USC, um, who was the number 9 team in the country, who
Hmm.
has last year's Heisman Trophy winner, and you know every like half of the good offensive players in the country that decided to leave their teams last year.
Hmm.
Um, Arizona took that team to triple overtime. Caleb Williams had 2 fumbles on the day. Arizona recovered one of them. And they were leading going into halftime 17-14. And USC got one of those touchdowns off of a tipped pass that was intercepted.
Yeah.
And, this game obviously went down to the wire. But I think this was Caleb Williams' moment to have a Heisman moment.
Yeah.
And he absolutely failed. He had, his stats on the day 14 to 25 for 219 and a touchdown, 12 carries, 41 yards. He did have 3 touchdowns on the ground. That's including overtime, obviously.
Hmm.
So 4 total touchdowns, but a total of 260 yards. Normally he has that by halftime.
Right. Yeah.
And he almost lost. USC, Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, almost lost to an Arizona team that has 3 losses on the season.
And their 3 wins aren't great either. They
No.
in Arizona, Stanford, and UTEP.
Yeah. Yeah. And they beat Stanford by 1 point.
Hmm.
So this Arizona team was held to 21 points by Stanford and 24 points by Washington. And they got 41 against the number 9 team in the country.
In it was that was in
Yep,
LA.
that was Coliseum.
Yeah. I'll tell you
And
what, like so they lost by 7 to Washington, lost by 2 to USC. They play at Wazoo and Pullman, Washington, against the number 13 Washington State Cougs. Um, the spread right now is 8.5. I'm taking
yeah,
Arizona.
all
Right, I'm
day.
calling it right now. It's mine.
All day.
Yeah.
Arizona may not be undefeated. They're damn close to it against the spread.
Yeah. Hmm.
Good teams win, great teams cover, and they're covering.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's a hole in that logic, but yeah, they're a great team. That's not good.
degenerate thoughts. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
No, and I know I talked about this earlier, but it absolutely blows my mind. USC fell one spot to number 10. after squeaking by an Arizona team with 3 losses and allowing 41 points and going to triple overtime.
Mm.
But Texas lost on a last second play to a ranked OU team that was top 10 in total offense and total defense. After they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, something that had not been done since 2019 by a guy named Joe Burrow, if you haven't heard of him, and they fell 6 spots.
Yeah, it's still wild. I don't get it.
I understand they're the highest ranked one loss team in college football, but at, no sense. No sense. I mean,
Hmm.
at this point, I just have to assume that the AP voters care about defense as much as Lincoln Riley does.
Shots fired.
Shots fired to everybody. If
Hmm.
you don't want shots fired at you, go ahead and get down.
Duck and cover.
Just that is insanity. It's like that in itself makes me want for me and you to get together and do like our own top 25
Hmm.
and put it
Might,
out.
might be something that we have to do.
Yeah, because this is insanity.
Hmm. They should take our poll into account in the college football playoff process for sure.
Shit, I'll put it on Instagram and tag them.
Do a collab with the CFP committee.
Do a collab request with the college football playoff IG. That would be, you know what? I might do it. Shits and giggles. What are they
I
going to
mean, you
say?
know what?
No?
They might accidentally accept it, and then they don't probably check it very often. They're like, oh, holy shit.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Um, so something else that's hilarious. My picks this week. I will say this is what my first week in second week of the 6 in the red. So you know, shooting 2 for 3 right now,
Hmm.
or 4 for 6, whatever you want to call it. I actually do know fraction math, so getting into it, I thought Kentucky was going to cover in Athens at 14.5. They very much did not.
Yeah.
I thought Texas was going to cover the 6.5, and they very much did not because they lost.
They should
I
have.
should have,
Yeah.
absolutely should have.
Hmm.
A&M did not cover against Alabama that 2.5, which we both messed up there. I thought Missouri was gonna cover the 5.5,
Hmm.
which without a interception towards the end of that game, they probably or they had it covered,
Yeah.
and without that might have gone down the field and scored based on how LSU's defense had played all day.
Oh, but LSU's defense played a hell of a lot better in the second half, though. A
One
lot better.
half versus 5 games, I'll take the 5 games.
Yeah, no. They definitely don't have time on their side in that case, but they did play better in the second half.
I did take Arkansas to cover the 12 um,
Hmm.
against Ole Miss, even though it's in Oxford. Won that one because never doubt KJ to cover a spread except for probably the Alabama game, if I'm being entirely honest.
Yeah.
Syracuse and UNC did not hit the over. It was close. I think the
Hmm.
final score was 44-13, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
So 2 points off of covering that. Little upset. UNC could have kept scoring. Um, Notre Dame Louisville did hit the under. That was the one I felt the best about in my picks.
Hmm.
So happy about that. Clemson almost lost the weight, so there's no way in hell they covered that 21 points.
Yeah, I think it was like a 2 or 3 point game. It was weird. I think it was two.
17-14, I think it was.
Was it? Okay.
I think so. I could be wrong. Um,
Not
Maryland
21.
Maryland pushed at Ohio State, so that doesn't count. And then my weekly take the over on USC obviously hit because they scored a combined 84 points. Um,
Hmm.
so 71 got crushed. So my record this week 4-6-1, overall 35-27-1. So I am still in the black on weekly picks, and with what I actually put money on this week, I only lost 50 cents. based on units. So
There you go.
I lost less than $1 this week. So I'm okay.
Yeah, you'll get over it. Yeah, for sure. All right. So with me, um, if y'all remembered back, to the preview pod, I was not super confident in my Georgia pick, but I'm glad I did take them to cover that 14 and a half. I was with you on the Texas 6.5. They did not cover that. If the game was 59 minutes 30 seconds, they would have.
Everybody
Or
but Texas Tech in the state of Texas was down bad this week.
mm, oh yeah, for sure.
Texas
Yeah,
Tech,
A
the
and M.
only Big 12 Texas team to win a game this week.
Hmm, interesting. Hmm. So ATM, Texas A&M. I finally said it. How I write it down is ATM. But yeah, A&M didn't cover. I did take LSU to cover again, like John said, the last 15 seconds. LSU was able to pull it out with that pick six and to be able to cover. I did take the over on that game as well. Just went over that. Did take Arkansas with you, but I did lose on the over pick. It was pretty significantly under. I took Texas Tech from my bandwagon team. They won, put a shit pumping on Baylor. Now the game I'm most pissed off that I actually stuck with because I was stuck between two games here. Officially, I took uh, Marshall at NC State. NC State was a 6.5 point favorite. I took Marshall plus the 6.5. They ended up losing by 7. It was a bad beat,
Oh,
but I wanted. I originally I had on there Fresno State number. I think they're number 25 or 24 or whatever. They're back in the top 25. Fresno State was going to Wyoming to play the Cowboys out there. Originally, I was going to take uh, Wyoming. Whatever the spread was, wasn't going to take them to necessarily win straight up. I ended up chicking it out of that, and like Wyoming like whooped the shit out of Fresno State. So I'm upset that I went there. Or didn't keep that. Oregon State 9.5 point favorite. I took them. They covered. The Michigan Minnesota over 46. Michigan covered that on their own. I think they scored 52. I think. And then Kansas covered against UCF. They were a 2 point favorite. They went way over that. They kicked the shit out of Gus Malzahn. So overall, finally back on the winning side here. Week 6, I'm 8-4, and then overall, I'm back in black, 32-30. So
there you go.
back at it. So stop
There you
fading
go.
me for now.
Just for now.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. As always, we're going to tell you to follow the Instagram at nothing.finder.pod, Twitter at finderpod, Facebook and YouTube. Just search us there for lost my train of thought, so I'm just going to keep rolling. Rate and review the show 5 stars. Send us a screenshot. We'll send you a sticker. Um, I think that's it. So, as always, guys, remember there is nothing finer in the land.
Then a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.